How to activate your feminine energy for inner peace is not about becoming softer or weaker. And Carl Jung never meant it that way, because feminine energy is not submission. It is depth, intuition, and inner authority. And the reason most people never feel peaceful is because they are disconnected from this inner force. Jung believed every human carries both masculine and feminine energies, but society trains us to overuse control, logic, force, and constant doing, which silently kills the feminine side. And when feminine energy is suppressed, the soul becomes restless, anxious, and exhausted without knowing why. This is why you can have success, attention, or even love, and still feel empty inside. Because inner peace does not come from achievement, it comes from alignment, and feminine energy is the gateway to that alignment. Carl Jung said the soul speaks through symbols, emotions, and intuition. But modern life teaches us to ignore all three, especially women who are taught to be strong by becoming emotionally armored. Always alert, always proving, always chasing. And this constant outward push creates an inner war. The first sign your feminine energy is blocked is that you feel tense, even when nothing is wrong. You struggle to rest without guilt, you overthink small decisions, and silence makes you uncomfortable. Jung believed that the feminine principle is receptive, not passive, meaning it has the power to receive truth without forcing it. And inner peace begins the moment you stop trying to control life and start listening to it. Activating feminine energy starts with learning to slow down without fear, because peace cannot enter a nervous system that is always in survival mode. This is why Jung emphasized shadow work, because unexpressed emotions do not disappear. They hide in the unconscious and create anxiety, mood swings, and emotional numbness. Feminine energy is deeply connected to emotional honesty, not emotional drama, but the courage to feel without judgment. When you allow yourself to feel sadness without rushing to fix it, when you sit with uncertainty instead of panicking, when you trust your intuition, even if logic cannot explain it, you are already activating feminine energy. Jung warned that people who disconnect from their inner feminine become obsessed with external validation, because they no longer feel whole inside. And this obsession creates inner noise that blocks peace. Another powerful truth Jung revealed is that feminine energy thrives in presence, not pressure. The more you rush life, the more disconnected you become from yourself. This is why moments of stillness feel uncomfortable at first, because they expose how long you have been running from your inner voice. But peace does not arrive loudly. It arrives quietly, and only those who slow down enough can hear it. Feminine energy is also deeply intuitive, but intuition only speaks when the mind is not screaming. This is why overthinking is one of the biggest enemies of inner peace. Jung believed intuition is the soul's intelligence, and when you learn to trust it, life feels lighter, decisions feel clearer, and anxiety loses its grip. Activating feminine energy also means redefining strength, because true strength is not emotional suppression, it is emotional mastery. It is the ability to stay soft in a hard world without breaking. And this softness is not weakness, it is resilience. Jung often spoke about individuation, the process of becoming whole. And wholeness only happens when feminine and masculine energies are balanced, not when one dominates the other. Inner peace is not found by becoming more productive, more busy, or more disciplined. It is found by reconnecting with the part of you that knows how to rest, feel, receive, and trust. And most people resist this because peace feels unfamiliar when chaos has become normal. But the moment you stop fighting yourself, something profound begins to shift. Your body relaxes, your thoughts slow down, and for the first time, silence feels safe. This is the beginning of feminine awakening. And this is only the first layer of what Carl Jung meant when he spoke about inner harmony. Carl Jung believed that inner peace is not something you achieve, it is something you remember. And this remembering begins when emotional wounds are no longer ignored but understood, because feminine energy is deeply connected to healing. And healing is not about fixing what is broken. It is about allowing what was hidden to finally be seen. Most people live in emotional survival mode without realizing it, reacting instead of responding, protecting instead of trusting. And this constant inner defense keeps the nervous system tense, which blocks peace. Jung taught that whatever we resist persists. And feminine energy does the opposite of resistance. It allows, observes, and integrates. This is why emotional suppression feels like strength but eventually turns into anxiety, exhaustion, or emotional numbness. Activating feminine energy requires the courage to stop running from your feelings and start listening to them, because emotions are not the enemy, they are messengers from the unconscious. And when you ignore the message, the emotion only grows louder. Jung explained that the unconscious communicates through feelings long before it uses words, so when sadness, loneliness, or fear appears, it is not trying to hurt you. It is trying to guide you back to yourself. Feminine energy knows how to hold emotion without being consumed by it. This is the difference between emotional chaos and emotional wisdom. When you allow yourself to feel without judgment, the body releases stored tension, the mind slows down, and peace begins to replace resistance. Another powerful aspect of feminine energy is intuition, which Jung described as a form of inner knowing that does not rely on logic. But modern life teaches us to distrust intuition unless it can be explained. This creates an inner split, where the soul knows one thing, but the mind demands proof. And this inner conflict is a major source of anxiety. When you begin to trust your intuitive responses, even in small ways, you rebuild self-trust. And self-trust is the foundation of inner peace. Because when you trust yourself, you no longer feel the need to control everything. Feminine energy also transforms how you relate to the external world. Because when you stop forcing outcomes, life begins to respond differently. Jung observed that people who are internally aligned often experience meaningful coincidences, which he called synchronicities. These are not magic. They are signs that inner and outer worlds are in harmony, and feminine energy is the bridge between the two. Another critical part of activating feminine energy is releasing the need to be constantly understood or validated, because peace disappears the moment your worth depends on someone else's reaction. Jung believed that individuation requires separating your true self from social masks, and feminine energy thrives when you stop performing and start being. This is why silence becomes powerful when feminine energy is active, because you no longer feel the urge to explain yourself, defend yourself, or prove anything. Your presence speaks for you, and this presence naturally calms the nervous system, both yours and others. Feminine energy also restores the ability to receive. Many people are exhausted because they only know how to give, do, and endure. But receiving without guilt is a feminine strength, whether it is rest, support, love, or pleasure. When you allow yourself to receive, you tell the unconscious that you are safe, and safety is the foundation of peace. Jung emphasized that the psyche heals in an environment of safety, not pressure. This is why slowing down is not laziness. It is psychological restoration. Another subtle but powerful shift happens when feminine energy activates. Your relationship with time changes. Urgency fades, patience grows, and you stop measuring your worth by speed or productivity. Peace begins when life is no longer a race, but a rhythm. And feminine energy understands rhythm intuitively. It knows when to act and when to wait, when to speak and when to remain silent. And this intuitive timing reduces inner conflict, because you are no longer forcing yourself into situations that feel wrong. As feminine energy becomes stronger, you also become more emotionally selective. You stop absorbing other people's chaos, moods, and expectations. Jung believed that psychic boundaries are essential for mental health, and feminine energy creates boundaries not through aggression, but through self-respect. You no longer chase connection. You allow it, and what is aligned stays. What is not naturally falls away. This is not loss, it is clarity, and clarity creates peace, because the soul relaxes when it no longer has to pretend, perform, or tolerate what drains it. By this stage, inner peace stops feeling like a distant idea and starts feeling like a quiet presence within you. But this is still not the deepest layer, because Jung believed that true peace only arrives when a person reconnects with their authentic self beyond fear and conditioning. And this is where the final transformation begins. Carl Jung believed that true inner peace is not a temporary emotional state. It is a stable inner alignment that remains even when life becomes uncertain. And this level of peace only emerges when feminine energy is no longer something you visit occasionally, but something you live from daily. Because feminine energy is not a technique, it is a way of being. And the final stage of activation begins when you stop trying to become someone new and instead return to who you were before fear taught you to harden. Jung taught that the authentic self already exists beneath conditioning, trauma, and expectations, and feminine energy is the path that leads you back to that self. At this stage, peace no longer depends on silence, comfort, or perfect circumstances. It comes from inner coherence, the feeling that your thoughts, emotions, and actions are no longer in conflict. One of the clearest signs feminine energy is fully integrated is that you no longer feel the urge to rush your healing. Because you trust your own timing, Jung emphasized that the psyche unfolds naturally when it is not forced, and forcing transformation often delays it. This is why patience becomes effortless when feminine energy is active. Another shift occurs in how you experience solitude. Instead of loneliness, solitude becomes nourishing, because you are no longer seeking completion from the outside. Inner peace deepens when you enjoy your own presence, and this self-companionship is one of the most powerful forms of emotional independence. Jung believed that people who cannot sit with themselves will always be at war internally. But feminine energy teaches you how to sit with yourself gently, without judgment, without pressure, without self-criticism. Daily life also begins to feel lighter because you stop interpreting every challenge as a threat. Emotional resilience grows, not because you suppress emotion, but because you allow it to move through you without resistance. Feminine energy understands that emotions are temporary waves, not permanent identities, and this understanding prevents emotional overwhelm. Another profound integration happens in relationships. You stop over-giving, over-explaining, or over-functioning. You allow others to meet you where you are, and this creates balanced connections. Jung believed that relationships reflect our inner state, and when feminine energy is integrated, relationships become calmer, deeper, and more honest. Because you are no longer seeking validation, you are sharing presence. Inner peace also changes how you handle uncertainty. Instead of needing guarantees, you develop trust in life itself, not blind optimism, but a grounded trust that whatever unfolds can be met with awareness. Jung called this faith in the psyche, the belief that the unconscious knows how to guide us if we listen. This trust dissolves chronic anxiety, because anxiety is often the fear of losing control. And feminine energy does not need control to feel safe. It needs connection. Connection to the body, emotions, intuition, and present moment. This is why grounding practices feel natural rather than forced. You move more slowly, speak more intentionally, and choose environments that support your nervous system. Inner peace becomes embodied, not intellectual. Your body relaxes, your breathing deepens, and your mind no longer feels crowded. Another subtle sign of full activation is that you stop explaining your boundaries. You honor them quietly. Jung believed that maturity is the ability to hold one's truth without defending it, and feminine energy embodies this maturity through calm confidence. As this energy stabilizes, you begin to influence others without trying. Your presence feels grounding, your silence feels reassuring, and people respond differently to you, not because you changed your personality, but because you changed your inner state. This is the quiet power Jung spoke of, the power that does not seek attention, but naturally commands respect. Finally, inner peace reveals itself not as happiness, but as acceptance of imperfection, change, and the unknown. Jung believed that wholeness is the goal of life, not constant positivity, and feminine energy is the key to wholeness because it embraces all aspects of the self, light and shadow, strength and vulnerability, certainty and mystery. When you stop rejecting parts of yourself, the inner war ends and peace becomes your natural state, not something you chase, but something you return to again and again. This is how feminine energy creates inner peace, not by escaping life, but by meeting it fully, softly, and truthfully.